The massive vessel appeared suddenly in Earth's orbit on a quiet Tuesday morning, its metallic surface gleaming like polished silver in the sunlight over Seoul. The sight of it made everyone stop and stare upward, their daily routines forgotten as they tried to comprehend the enormous ship that now hung in their sky. Dr. Hannah Park had been reviewing climate data in her office at the National Science Institute when the alerts began flooding in. She rushed to join her colleagues in the main monitoring room, where dozens of screens displayed different angles of the alien vessel. The ship maintained a perfect geosynchronous orbit, showing technological precision that surpassed anything humanity had achieved. "Look at the size of it," whispered one of her colleagues, Dr. Kang, as they studied the readings. "It must be at least 3 kilometers long." The ship's hull seemed to shift colors slightly as it moved, suggesting materials unknown to Earth science. The first transmission came exactly 2 hours after the ship's arrival. The message was broadcast simultaneously across all communication channels, in perfect translations for every major language on Earth. "We are the Galactic Concordat," the message began, "and we come bearing a gift to Earth." Initial panic gave way to cautious curiosity as the aliens maintained their peaceful stance. World leaders scrambled to organize an emergency United Nations session, and within days, the Concordat's ambassador made their first appearance before the assembly. Dr. Park was among the selected scientists present at the UN meeting. She watched as the ambassador stepped onto the stage, their tall, elegant form moving with unusual grace. Their skin had an iridescent quality that made them appear to glow from within, shifting between subtle shades of blue and green as they moved. "We have watched your struggle with your changing climate," the ambassador said, their voice carrying easily through the hall. "We see a species on the brink of great change, and we wish to help." They gestured, and a small device materialized on the podium before them. It was surprisingly small, about the size of a microwave oven, with smooth curves and a faint blue glow emanating from its core. "This technology," the ambassador continued, "can transform your excess carbon dioxide into pure oxygen. It will cleanse your atmosphere and help restore the natural balance of your world." The assembly hall erupted in murmurs and excited whispers. Dr. Park found herself chosen to lead the international team tasked with examining the device. For weeks, they worked around the clock in a secure facility, running every possible test they could think of. The technology seemed to work exactly as promised. It absorbed carbon dioxide and released pure oxygen, with an efficiency that made Earth's best carbon capture systems look primitive in comparison. "The energy readings are unlike anything I've ever seen," Dr. Park told her team during one of their analysis sessions. "It's not just cleaning the air, it's doing it without any apparent power source." This discovery both excited and worried her, but all their tests showed no radiation, no harmful emissions, and no dangerous byproducts. As global temperatures continued to rise and extreme weather events increased, world leaders faced mounting pressure to accept and implement the alien technology. The Concordat had provided detailed instructions for replicating the device, allowing Earth to produce enough units to place around the globe. At the formal acceptance ceremony, the alien ambassador presented the final blueprints with what seemed like genuine pleasure. "Your world has chosen wisely," they said. "This gift will transform your planet." Something in their tone made Dr. Park feel uneasy, but she pushed the feeling aside, focusing instead on the potential benefits. The day the Concordat ship departed, it left with little ceremony. The massive vessel simply rose higher and higher until it disappeared from view. Their final transmission echoed through every communication channel. "We will return to witness your progress." Dr. Park stood at her laboratory window that evening, watching the sunset. The sky seemed different somehow, knowing what was now up there, knowing what they had accepted. She couldn't shake the feeling that they had just passed a point of no return, but whether it led to salvation or something else, only time would tell. As she turned back to her work, the small alien device on her lab bench pulsed with its soft blue light, steadily processing Earth's atmosphere according to its programming. Humanity had taken its first step into a larger universe, But Dr. Park wondered if they had been too quick to accept help from beings they barely understood. The real question wasn't what the gift could do. It was why it had been given in the first place. The first signs of trouble appeared on a rainy morning in October, 6 months after the atmospheric converters had been activated worldwide. Dr. Hannah Park sat at her desk, frowning at the data flowing across her screens. Something wasn't right with the numbers, and she could feel it in her bones. The lab in Daejeon was quiet at this early hour, with only the soft hum of computers and equipment filling the air. Dr. Park had made it a habit to arrive before sunrise, finding the peaceful morning hours perfect for detailed analysis. Today, that habit would prove more important than ever. She pulled up the atmospheric composition charts from the past 6 months, comparing them to the baseline data from before the converters were activated. The oxygen levels were rising, which was expected. That was what the alien technology was supposed to do. But there was something else, a pattern that made her stomach tighten with worry. Dr. Park reached for her phone and called Dr. Ta Kim, her research partner for the past decade. They had worked together through countless projects, but none as significant as this one. "Tai, I need you to come in early. There's something you need to see." Within an hour, Dr. Kim arrived, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He found Dr. Park still at her desk, surrounded by even more data displays. She had barely moved since making the call, too absorbed in her analysis to notice the time passing. "Look at these readings," she said without preamble, pointing to a series of graphs. "The oxygen density is increasing. But there's something else. The atmospheric pressure is rising steadily." She pulled up another chart. "And look at these trace gas concentrations. They're shifting in a pattern I've never seen before." Dr. Kim set down the coffees and leaned in closer, his expression growing more serious as he studied the numbers. "How long has this been happening?" "The change started subtle, but it's been accelerating. I've checked the data 3 times. It's not a measurement error." Dr. Park pulled up more charts, showing similar patterns from monitoring stations around the world. They spent the next several hours analyzing the data, calling in other team members as they arrived. By midnight, their lab was filled with scientists, all working to understand what was happening to Earth's atmosphere. "The pressure increase isn't just in one location," Dr. Kim noted, pointing to global readings. "It's happening everywhere the converters are active. And look at these molecular structures. They're becoming more complex." Dr. Park felt a chill run down her spine as she realized what they were seeing. "The air isn't just being cleaned," she said quietly. "It's being transformed into something else entirely." Working through the night, fueled by coffee and growing concern, they began to piece together the truth. The alien technology wasn't simply converting carbon dioxide to oxygen. It was gradually altering the very composition of Earth's atmosphere. "Compare these readings to what we know about the Concordat's ambassador," Dr. Kim suggested. They pulled up the biological data they had gathered during the aliens' visit. The correlation was unmistakable. The gift was slowly but surely transforming Earth's atmosphere to match conditions more suitable for the Concordat species. The process was so gradual that it had escaped notice during their initial testing, but now the pattern was clear. Dr. Park stared at the projection showing the estimated atmospheric composition if the process continued unchecked. In less than 5 years, the air would become increasingly difficult for humans to breathe, while becoming perfect for their supposed benefactors. "We need to tell someone," one of the junior researchers said, breaking the heavy silence that had fallen over the lab. "No," Dr. Park replied, her mind racing. "Not yet. If we go public with this, the Concordat might realize we've discovered their plan. We need to understand exactly how this technology works first, and we need to find a way to stop it." Dr. Kim nodded in agreement. "We'll need to bring in experts from other fields, quietly, and we'll need to set up independent monitoring systems that can't be detected from orbit." As the sun rose on a new day, the scientists in that lab knew they were now in a race against time. They had to find a way to counter the alien technology before Earth's atmosphere became too altered for human life. Dr. Park looked out the window at the morning sky, which now seemed more threatening than beautiful. The Concordat's gift had been a cleverly disguised weapon, and humanity had welcomed it with open arms. Now their only hope was to understand and overcome this technology before it was too late. She turned back to her team, determination replacing her earlier fear. "Let's get to work," she said, "and let's keep this between us for now. The Earth's future depends on what we do next." Deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland, in a secret facility originally built for particle physics research, the world's leading scientists gathered in what would become the most important meeting in human history. The Global Science Coalition had assembled quietly, with members arriving under the cover of a standard research conference. Dr. Hannah Park stood at the front of the dimly lit auditorium, her heart pounding as she faced 50 of the most brilliant minds on Earth. The room was secure, swept for listening devices, and isolated from all external communications. On the screen behind her, data from their atmospheric analysis painted a grim picture. "The changes are accelerating," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "In the past month alone, atmospheric pressure has increased by 2% globally." She clicked to the next slide, showing projections that made several scientists shift uncomfortably in their seats. Dr. Ta Kim joined her at the podium, adding his own findings to the presentation. "We've detected unusual particle behavior in the upper atmosphere. The alien devices aren't just filtering air. They're reconstructing it at the molecular level." The room buzzed with whispered conversations until Dr. Siok Lee stepped forward. He was shorter than his colleagues, with round glasses and a quiet intensity that commanded attention. His recent work in quantum physics had revolutionized their understanding of particle behavior. "I need to show you something," he said, pulling up detailed scans of the alien device's core. The images showed intricate patterns that seemed to flow and shift even in the still photographs. "These aren't random designs. They're mathematical sequences, and they're familiar." The audience leaned forward as Dr. Lee explained his discovery. "These patterns match theoretical models we developed years ago for matter manipulation. But there's more. The technology itself shows signs of extreme age. The molecular structure suggests it's centuries, possibly millennia old." He zoomed in on one section of the core, highlighting a series of crystalline formations. "These structures have degraded in a way that's only possible with extreme age. The Concordat didn't create this technology. They found it, just like they found other worlds to use it on." Dr. Park watched as understanding dawned on the faces before her. "We now believe the Concordat is using ancient technology they discovered, possibly from a long-extinct civilization. They've been traveling from world to world, using these devices to transform planets for their own purposes." In the following hours, teams of scientists examined the data from every angle. They set up workstations throughout the facility, analyzing samples and running simulations. Dr. Lee worked with quantum computing experts to decode the device's operational principles. A voice filled the bridge, speaking with an oddly musical accent. "Vessel Pioneer, this is Ambassador Telleran of the Galactic Concordat. We must admit to some surprise at your arrival. We had not expected humanity to achieve quantum displacement technology for at least another century." Mei Ray exchanged glances with her crew before responding. "This is Captain Song Mai Ray of the KQS Pioneer. We were attempting a jump to Mars. Our presence here was not intended." "Yes, we observe your jump signature," the ambassador replied. "Your method of quantum travel is quite unique. Would you be willing to accept a delegation aboard your vessel? We have much to discuss." Dr. He-Yun's voice came through on a private channel. "Captain, the drive is stable. Whatever happened, it wasn't a malfunction. We somehow exceeded our intended range by a factor of at least 50. Mei Ray straightened her uniform again. "Ambassador, we would be honored to receive your delegation. Please understand this is humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. We may need some guidance and proper protocols." "Of course, Captain. And may I say, you're handling this situation with remarkable composure. We will transmit docking procedures shortly." The next hour was a blur of activity as the crew prepared for their unexpected guests. The alien shuttle that approached was as elegant as their mothership, moving with impossible grace through space. When the airlock cycled open, Mayray found herself face to face with beings that looked surprisingly similar to humans, though their skin had a slight bluish tint and their eyes were larger than normal. Ambassador Telleran stood slightly taller than the others, wearing robes that seemed to shift colors as they moved. "Captain Song," the ambassador bowed slightly. "Your achievement is remarkable. The Concordat has been observing Earth for some time, but we did not detect your quantum technology development. Your approach to space-time manipulation is unique." Dr. He-Yun stepped forward. "Our blink drive operates on principles of quantum folding rather than traditional space-time tunneling. We discovered it almost by accident." The ambassador's eyes widened slightly. "Quantum folding. But the energy requirements would be." They paused, looking at the humans with new respect. "Perhaps we have much to learn from each other." As Mayray led the delegation to the ship's conference room, she couldn't help but smile. Their mission to Mars had turned into humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization. Somehow, it seemed fitting that the blink drive had brought them to this moment, proving that humanity's greatest achievements often came when they dared to challenge the impossible. The KAIST laboratory buzzed with an unusual energy as Earth and alien scientists worked side by side. Dr. Park He-Yun watched as Choi Hyunwoo, her youngest team member, prepared the demonstration unit. The Concordat scientists, with their tall frames and subtle blue skin tones, gathered around the quantum oscillation chamber with obvious interest. The laboratory had changed significantly since their first breakthrough. New equipment lined the walls, some of it provided by the Concordat, to help them better understand the differences between their technologies. Holographic displays showed complex equations floating in the air, a mix of human and alien mathematical notation. "What we discovered," He-Yun began, pointing to the oscillation chamber, "was that space itself can be folded rather than tunneled through." She activated the chamber, and a small light began to pulse at its center. "Watch the energy readings carefully." The Concordat's lead scientist, Telleran, studied the display with intense focus. Their large eyes widened as the numbers appeared. "This can't be correct. The energy input is barely a quarter of what our systems require." Hyunwoo stepped forward, his excitement visible despite his professional demeanor. "That's because we're not fighting against space-time," he explained, pulling up a simulation on the main display. "Instead of forcing matter through a tunnel in space, we're bringing 2 points together temporarily." The simulation showed 2 dots on opposite sides of the screen. As the blink drive activated, the space between them simply folded, allowing them to touch for a fraction of a second before separating again. The process looked deceptively simple, but the quantum stability. Another Concordat scientist began, their musical accent making the Korean words sound like poetry. "How do you maintain field coherence during the fold?" He-Yun smiled, remembering their early struggles with this exact problem. She walked to a smaller testing chamber and placed a simple metal cube inside. "It's easier to show you. Hyunwoo, would you do the honors?" The young scientist activated the chamber. The cube seemed to blur for a moment, then disappeared, reappearing instantly in a receiver unit across the room. The energy meter barely registered the transfer. "We discovered that quantum particles naturally want to exist in multiple states," He-Yun explained. "Rather than forcing them into new positions, we simply allow them to express their natural tendencies on a larger scale. The field coherence maintains itself because we're working with the quantum nature of space rather than against it." The Concordat scientists huddled together, discussing rapidly in their native language. Their expressions showed a mixture of disbelief and excitement. Earth's primitive approach to quantum physics had produced something they had never considered possible. He-Yun led them to another station, where the mathematics behind the blink drive were displayed in full detail. "The equations may look complex, but the underlying principle is quite simple. Space wants to fold. We just had to find the right way to ask it. One of the alien scientists traced a finger along a particularly elegant equation. "This is beautiful," they said softly. "We've spent centuries trying to force our way through space-time, and you simply asked it to move aside." Hyunwoo brought up comparative energy readings between the Concordet's quantum tunneling drive and the blink drive. The difference was stark. The human design operated at a fraction of the power requirement while achieving the same results. The real breakthrough came when we stopped thinking about transportation as movement through space, Hae-yun continued. We realized that distance is more flexible than we thought. The universe already knows how to do this. We see it in quantum entanglement. We just had to scale it up. The demonstration continued for hours as the two groups of scientists shared their knowledge. The Concordat team began to understand why their own quantum drive technology had hit efficiency limits they could never overcome. They had been approaching the problem from a fundamentally different direction. As the day drew to a close, Telleran approached Hae-yun privately. "Your species continues to surprise us," they said. "We thought we were coming to teach you about quantum physics. Instead, you have taught us to question our most basic assumptions about how the universe works." Hae-yun looked around the laboratory, at humans and aliens working together, sharing ideas and building something new. "Maybe that's the real breakthrough," she replied. "Not the technology itself, but the reminder that there's always another way to look at a problem." The implications were clear. Humanity's primitive approach to physics had produced something revolutionary precisely because they hadn't been constrained by centuries of established theory. They had looked at the quantum world with fresh eyes and seen possibilities that others had missed. As night fell over Daejeon, the laboratory remained active. The blink drive had done more than revolutionize space travel. It had opened a door to a new era of scientific cooperation between species, and this was just the beginning. The first warning came at midnight. Security Officer Kang Minji was reviewing camera feeds when red lights began flashing across her monitors. The peaceful night at the research facility erupted into chaos as alarm sirens pierced the air. "Multiple breaches detected in sectors 3 and 4, her assistant called out. "Unknown vessels appearing at facility perimeter. They're using some kind of stealth technology." Minji's fingers flew across her console, bringing up defensive systems. The facility's shields hummed to life, but she could already see the attackers had positioned themselves carefully. 3 sleek ships hovered above the complex, their dark hulls absorbing light rather than reflecting it. "Alert Dr. Park and Dr. Kim," she ordered. "Get all research staff to secure locations. Activate Protection Protocol 7. She grabbed her tactical pad and ran toward the central security hub, her mind already racing through defensive scenarios. The first explosion rocked the building as she reached the hub. Through the reinforced windows, she could see figures in dark armor rappelling from the ships. Their movements were too precise, too coordinated. This was no random attack. "Officer Kang," a voice crackled through the facility's communication system. "This is Captain Riza of the Mercantile League. We have no wish to harm your people. Give us the blink drive specifications, and we will leave peacefully." Minji's hand tightened on her tactical pad. The Mercantile League, a group of technology pirates who sold advanced systems to the highest bidder. They had been causing trouble across Earth's solar system since first contact with the Concordat. Dr. Park Hae-yun's voice came through on a secure channel. "Minji, we've secured the main laboratory, but they're trying to hack our data systems." "Understood." Minji pulled up the facility's layout on her pad. The attackers were moving in a standard assault pattern, but they didn't know about the facility's secret weapon, a prototype defense system based on the blink drive itself. "Dr. Park, can you activate the quantum field generators?" Minji asked, watching as the attackers advanced through the outer corridors. "Yes, but they're not designed as weapons," Hae-yun replied. "We've only tested them for transportation." "We don't need weapons," Minji said, a plan forming in her mind. "We just need to confuse their targeting systems. Can you create multiple small fields around the facility? She could almost hear He-Yun's smile through the communication system. Quantum displacement fields coming online now. The effect was immediate. The attacking forces suddenly found themselves unable to trust their sensors. The quantum fields made it impossible to determine the exact location of anything within the facility. Their precise movements became hesitant, uncertain. What's happening? One of the attackers could be heard shouting through an open channel. My targeting system shows 3 identical signatures for every target. Min-Ji allowed herself a small smile as she coordinated with the facility's security teams. The quantum fields weren't just creating confusion. They were actively folding space in small, controlled ways. The attackers would aim at one location only to find their target had instantly shifted position. Captain Riza, she broadcast on an open channel. You came to steal our technology. Now you're seeing just a fraction of what it can do. I suggest you reconsider your position. Another explosion rocked the building, but this time it came from the attackers' own weapons. Their targeting systems, confused by the quantum fields, had directed fire at one of their own ships. This is impossible. Riza's voice had lost its confidence. No defense system can move that fast. We're not moving at all, Min-Ji replied. We're simply adjusting how space works around us, something your sensors can't handle. The security teams moved in, using the confusion to their advantage. The attackers, unable to trust their advanced targeting systems, were forced to rely on basic visual contact. But in the maze of quantum fields, even that proved unreliable. Within 20 minutes, the attack had completely fallen apart. 2 of the League's ships retreated with significant damage, while the third was disabled by its own misfired weapons. The ground forces, disoriented and outmaneuvered, surrendered to facility security. As the quantum fields powered down, Min-Ji met with He-Yun in the control room. I never thought we'd use the blink drive technology like this, the scientist said, looking at the aftermath displayed on the monitors. Sometimes the best defense isn't about having better weapons, Min-Ji replied. It's about understanding your technology better than your opponent does. They watched as Concordat security ships arrived to take the captured League members into custody. The attack had failed, but it had also revealed something important. The blink drive's potential went far beyond simple transportation. News of the failed attack spread quickly through the scientific community. The Mercantile League had come expecting to find valuable but conventional technology. Instead, they had discovered that humanity's quantum breakthrough was far more revolutionary than anyone had imagined. The Concordat's Grand Assembly Hall stretched upward in sweeping curves of crystal and light. Dr. Park, He-Yun stood at the speaker's platform beside Ambassador Yang Ji-won, looking out at the gathered representatives of over 200 alien civilizations. The massive chamber hummed with quiet conversations in dozens of languages. Light filtered through the crystalline ceiling, casting rainbow patterns across the assembled delegates. Species of all shapes and sizes filled the tiered seating, some floating in special environment pods, others requiring different atmospheric conditions in their sealed sections. Ji-won stepped forward, his diplomatic robes catching the light. Honored representatives of the Concordat, he began, his voice carried clearly through the universal translators. We stand before you not as supplicants, but as partners in progress. He-Yun activated the holographic display, showing the basic principles of the blink drive. The familiar equations floated in the air, drawing gasps from some of the scientific advisors present. For centuries, Ji-won continued, the Concordat has approached quantum transportation through tunneling technology. It was the obvious path, the one that seemed most logical. But humanity, coming to this problem with fresh eyes, found a different way. The display shifted, showing a side-by-side comparison of Concordat quantum tunneling and the blink drive's space-folding technique. The energy efficiency differences were stark. The blink drive proves that different approaches to the same problem can yield superior results, Ji-won said. But more importantly, it proves that no single civilization has all the answers. We propose a new kind of exchange, not just of technology, but of perspectives. He-Yun stepped forward. When we first achieved quantum transportation, we did so without centuries of established theory guiding our way. What some might see as a disadvantage became our greatest strength. We looked at the quantum realm with new eyes and saw possibilities others had overlooked. The assembly hall grew quiet as she spoke. Even the most skeptical delegates seemed interested in her words. But this is not about human superiority, she continued. It's about the power of combining different viewpoints. Your civilizations have developed technologies we can barely comprehend. Imagine what we could achieve by working together, sharing not just our discoveries, but our different ways of thinking. The holographic display showed a new set of equations, a hybrid system combining concordat stability control with human quantum folding principles. The result was something entirely new. An elder member of the Concordat Science Council stood. You propose to share this technology freely, after the recent attempt to steal it. Jai-1 nodded. The attack by the Mercantile League proved that trying to hoard technology only leads to conflict. We propose instead to make this knowledge available to all Concordat members under proper safety protocols. And in exchange, asked another delegate, their crystalline form shimmering with interest. In exchange, we ask for open access to Concordat scientific knowledge and the opportunity to work alongside your researchers, not as students, but as equals. Different perspectives working together toward common goals. The assembly erupted in discussion. Many delegates were already talking excitedly among themselves, while others looked concerned at such a dramatic break from tradition. He-Yun activated the final display, a simulation showing how combining human and Concordat technologies could revolutionize everything from space travel to energy production. We stand at a crossroads. Jai-1 addressed the assembly again. We can cling to old ways of thinking, or we can embrace the power of diversity, not just in species, but in thought itself. The vote that followed was closer than they had hoped, but the proposal passed. The agreement that would become known as the Technology Exchange Accord was signed that day, marking the beginning of a new era in galactic science. As they left the assembly hall, He-Yun looked at the stars visible through the crystal ceiling. Somewhere out there, research teams were already beginning to combine human intuition with alien knowledge in ways that would reshape their understanding of the universe. They're still unsure about us, Jai-1 said quietly as they walked. Some of them think we're too young, too unpredictable. He-Yun smiled. Maybe that's exactly what they need. A reminder that sometimes the best solutions come from unexpected places. Our fear of difference led us to waste countless opportunities, the former leader continued. We forgot that evolution takes many paths, and each path brings its own wisdom. Around the chamber, members of formerly suppressed species sat proudly alongside their once oppressors. The Halshi delegation's silvery skin caught the light as they moved with characteristic grace. The powerful Nai sat comfortably in chairs designed to accommodate their sturdy frames. Minho, now Earth's chief technological advisor, demonstrated the new integrated control systems that combined Federation technology with natural bipedal capabilities. We don't need to choose between biological ability and technological advancement, he explained. True progress comes from embracing both. Some men presented his research, no longer hidden in secret laboratories, but shared openly for the benefit of all species. His studies of bipedal neural patterns had led to breakthroughs in understanding how different species could complement each other's strengths. As Ta-1 signed the charter, he paused to look around the chamber. The gallery above was filled with observers from countless worlds, many seeing the Federation Council for the first time. The old restrictions on access had been lifted, replaced by a policy of radical transparency. We stand here today, not as victors over the old Federation, Ta-1 said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber, but as architects of a new way forward. Our victory was not in defeating our oppressors, but in showing them a better path. Jisoo watched as representatives from every species came forward to add their signatures to the charter. Each signing was unique. Some used traditional implements. Others pressed appendages into special sensors, while energy beings left distinctive quantum signatures. The chamber's great windows showed the vast expanse of space beyond, filled with stars that now promised opportunity rather than restriction. Ships of all designs moved through the lanes around the station, their crews working together regardless of physical form. As the signing ceremony concluded, Jisoo remembered those first days aboard the station, when she had felt like little more than a servant. Now she sat as an equal among the galaxy's leaders, proof that change was possible when beings of all kinds worked together. The new era brought challenges of its own, but they were the challenges of cooperation and understanding rather than suppression and fear. The galaxy had learned that true civilization meant celebrating differences rather than fearing them. As the three suns set on the first day of the new Federation, their light caught the crystal walls of the chamber, creating a rainbow of colors. Like those varied lights, the gathered species represented not a weakness to be controlled, but a spectrum of strength that would carry them all forward into a brighter future.